Hello. Let's talk today about taxes because it's tax season. So I'm gonna pull up the screen here, and we're gonna be going into a kind of a deep dive on Relay.app, and I'm gonna try to explain for those who don't know anything about it. It's gonna be a little bit tough, but not too bad. I'm gonna try to explain as much as I can, and also it's a part of the process that I explained in the last few videos where we talked about saving various random thoughts and then combining them into an email. This is expanding on that concept, but for tax purposes. So the initial concept is very simple, where I just pick up my phone, I tap on an icon, and I'm able to quickly record that I'm spending X amount of money on a certain item, and I hit send, and that's pretty much all there is to it to get a equivalent of a tax receipt into the system. Now, when I do this recording, which is using the Gmail app's capability to record with Automate app that allows me to automate the whole thing, so it's just literally a couple of taps and I have my tax receipt digitally recorded. After that, all the logic and everything is done by Relay.app in the cloud. And the process, which we'll go through shortly here, basically is relatively straightforward, but I'll explain everything as I go through it. And I'm going to be doing a little bit more of explaining what Relay.app does in terms of details, so you get a bit better idea of how it works and what you can do with it. So the idea behind this video is not just to show you how you can store your tax receipts in a relatively easy manner, even though it's part of it. It's also about using Relay.app for automation and things that you can do with it. And based on this example, I'm hoping you'll be able to take it and do some other things that you want to do. The link to the Relay.app is down below. Let's get started. First, let's go through the video of entering a tax receipt. And here's the video, and we tap on the icon that I set up with using the automate, and then Gmail comes up and I record my tax information for that particular transaction one at a time, hit send, and that's it. That's basically the end of the process. So that's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And then we come to the Relay app side of things, and this is where this screen comes in. And it's not too many steps, but there's a number of steps that I put in to do something special with that information. The way that the whole process starts is by sending an email to a mail hook, meaning to this particular email address that Relay.app generates, and you can easily copy it by clicking on the copy to clipboard here. And what it actually does is allowing you to easily run this process at any time at your convenience. So it's not anything that runs automatically, it only runs when you tell it to run. And so you can set up another icon, again, per my prior video, on your phone that you can just tap to initiate this process on demand at any time. Once this email is sent to this email address, then the process begins, and these steps are done in the order shown on the left here. So step 1, step 2, step 3, and so on. The first thing we do in this process is, I guess before we do that, let's look at the email itself. So if I grab my Gmail and bring it over here to this side, so you can see it, you can see that there are some emails that look like right here, subscription to Relay.app for $19. So that's all you have to do, just give it some kind of description and the dollar amount, and you just send that, and it becomes an email that goes here. Okay, simple enough. I have some other ones here that I did before, so you'll see examples. New laptop for this much, and so on. So just your basic deal. If you wanted to go beyond that, you can add the actual copy of the receipt itself by attaching it to this email. There's a number of things you could do. You could actually create that email and attach a photo of that receipt right then and there. So this email, when it comes in here, is actually going to have attached a physical copy as well, which is pretty useful. In my case, I'm not doing it. I'm just doing the text information. And then what happens after that is the following. It runs the step, will find emails, and it says, give me all the emails as a list that have the subject line that contains the words my tax receipt. And as you saw in my example there, that's exactly what it has the label of 2025. So I'm trying to keep this process to be for the current year only. So right now we're in 2025. I want to make sure that everything is labeled and marked as a tax receipt for 2025, so it doesn't get mixed with any other years. So that's why I put in the label called 2025. Of course, when the email came in, if you look at the Gmail itself, you can see that I didn't specify anything special, yet it has this 2025 label on it. And the way I got that set up to make it easy, because I like to do things as easily as possible within reason, is simply set up a filter in Gmail saying if you get any emails with the word my tax receipt in the subject, automatically attach label 2025 to them. And so next year I'll have to change it to attach 2026 and so on and so forth. That was intentional. I just wanted to set it up like this so I can change it when the years change, but basically just one little filter that does the job automatically, okay? Of course, what you'd want to do on that same filter is also mark these emails so they don't show up in your Gmail inbox. In my case, I don't really want to see these emails showing up as unread because they're just for the purposes of this automation. You could use the same filter to attach the label 2025 and mark them as right in there. But at this point, what we're trying to do is we're trying to find all the emails that have the label 2025. Subject contains my tax receipt, so we don't mix things. It's only just these tax receipts. And does not have the label processed. Again, as per my prior video, that's what I'm using as a flag to tell the system, don't process this thing more than once. Once it processes it, it puts the label processed on it, on each email it processes. But when it tries to find them and to see if there's anything new, that's how it knows. If there's no label processed on email that matches this subject and this label, then it needs to process it. And then it just continues and does its thing. And so that's the first step, just finding the right emails to process since the last time we did this process. Okay? So then the next thing we do is we say, okay, now that we got our bunch of emails, now we need to process them one at a time. It's one of these things where it's a little strange, where we're actually finding the emails as a group, but then we need to process them one at a time. That's just how this Relay.app works. You cannot make these changes based on all the emails it found. And also, by the way, you can only do this on up to 50 emails at a time. So they have this limitation. They're working on potentially fixing it to make it so you can go through more than 50. But just so you know, as you're doing this, you can only have up to 50 emails that you can process as a batch group. You need to keep that in mind. Right here, we have what they call an iterator. An iterator means give me a group of things, like a batch, and I'm going to process them one at a time. I'm going to iterate through each one doing something. That's what this block right here is. In this little green background, it says for each item that I got from step number two, of course, is right here, which was just finding these emails. So we're saying for each email that we have, then execute the following number of steps. I have all these steps within this green box. That's what this particular setup means. And so the first thing we're doing an AI step, which I call polish info, and basically what it says, we want to give the following prompt to AI. As a professional tax accountant, you'll need to take the emails and extract several pieces of info. Date of the email, description of the item, category of the item, and amount. Ignore everything else. The category isn't explicitly specified. Do your best to come up with plausible category from the description. Rewrite the description to be easy to understand, concise, and properly worded. Fix my English. Information that's there, that's relevant. Then we're saying, how do we want the information once it processes each email and does this prompt on it? What do we want to see as the output? And the output we want is either text, meaning just free-form text, or what they call structured data. And this simply in English means that I want fields. I don't want just data bunched together. I want individual fields so data is separated so I can deal with it later as I see fit. So in terms of my data, they usually give you a way to initially indicate if you want to have it read the description in the prompt and automatically figure out what the fields are, or you want to manually specify. In my case, I told it to go ahead and read it, and it came up with exactly what I wanted from my prompt. So usually that works really well. And output is list of responses, and it's got date, amount, category, description. Those are the 4 fields they wanted. That's what it has. Okay? And that's basically it. So it's going to process this particular step. I keep moving myself because I'm in the way. And that's going to be the polish info step. Then the next step, it says add row to a spreadsheet. So let's go ahead and pull up the spreadsheet. I think it's right here. Yeah. And this is something you need to set up before you do this whole process, because otherwise it's just not going to work. You need to specify what spreadsheet you want to work on, and that's something you need to create beforehand. So the first step before doing this whole process, you need to create a spreadsheet. If you want to follow my example exactly as I have it, then you need to also put in these fields in there, these columns I should say. In my case, it's category, date, description, and amount, the 4 we talked about. And then it's going to have the actual data fill in for us. So you don't need to put in, obviously, any data stuff, just put in the headings so it knows where to put what, and set up the spreadsheet. Okay? Then the next step here says add a row to a Google Sheet. And over here it indicates what Google Sheet specifically it is. And then when you set up this step, it's going to say, okay, where do you want me to put this information that I'm going to extract? And we're saying we can put it at the top of the sheet or the bottom. In our case, we want the bottom. We keep adding rows as we create these receipts. And then it says fields to populate, and it gives us all the fields that we want to select. In this case, we got our category, description, date, and amount. These are the fields that it found. Remember in the polished state, we looked at it, and we said which fields we want to extract. That's how it knows which fields they are. And in terms of the actual data for these fields, we want to get it from the output from the polish info from the AI steps. So that's where it has the category, has description, date. So everything it receives from this polish info, which is the AI step. Okay? Once you add all this information here to indicate these are the fields, this is the data coming into these fields from step number 4, as you can see, step number 4, polish info. Then it says, do you want to do anything else? And we don't want to do anything else. If we wanted to, we could test the step on any particular piece of data just to see if it works right or not. And output says would be basically the row in step 5, which is exactly by default what we want. I'm not going to run it right now, but essentially that's what it does. So now that we've looked at our emails, we're looking at one at a time, we're polishing the information, and we're adding the data properly from that information into the spreadsheet. The next step, it says send email to my email address. If we click on that, we can see it says send from and send to, so we can specify who we want the email to go to. And then it's the subject accounting copy for PCS. One of the things you could do here is you could specify CC and BCC, and potentially, if you wanted to, depending on how you are set up with your accounting firm that handles your receipts or your accounting department, you can easily add a CC with their email address, and then the same information that basically you'll see coming to me is going to go to them. Or you can just put their email address if you want to see this coming to you, because you'll have the original emails that you recorded, then the actual accounting information that it has the polished fields can go directly to the accounting people. So you can just put in their address in the to field, whatever subject you want to have, up to you. You can put in whatever format you want to have in the body. In my case, I just put in field names and the actual data of the fields, nothing too fancy. And then I put in also thank you. So you can format the body to be however you want it to be. And you can use rich text formatting, you can put little emojis, whatever you want to do. You can also attach files. In this case, I don't think it would be relevant. And you can also put labels if you want it, so the email comes with a label. In this case, it's not needed, so I'm not doing anything here. And then output would be just sending Gmail. So when it sends this Gmail, if we pull up email again, you can see this accounting copy email looks something like this. Let me make it a little bit bigger so it's easier to see. So you can see right there, it's basically has description, date, amount, category, just like you put it in that body example, and it actually has the actual field data next to it. So we got the date, we got the amount, we got the category, and category it figures out by itself. So I didn't specify category, but that's what I put in. And so it just creates these emails. So like I said, this is something normally I wouldn't send to myself, I would send to my accountant, or I would send to myself and a copy to accountant. But in this case, it just comes to me, just to give you an example. So that's the next step in the process that was taking each piece of data from each email, sticking into the spreadsheet, sending me an email, or sending it to accounting an email. And then the last thing I did was it says add label. And the label step adds the label called processed to whatever email we were working with. So it's going to go through each one, and so it's going to stick the label on each one. And that's why when we look at the emails here, we can see that the emails they initially sent now have not only the 2025 label from before because of the filter, but also have the label processed on it. So if I run this process again, it's not going to match, and it's not going to process these again because it has this process label on it. So again, it's like a switch that basically tells the system, use this email or don't use this email. That allows me to record these tax receipts at any point in time, as many as I want, and then process them whenever I feel like it, on demand, by sending you the email. Okay? In each step, when you execute these steps, you can test each step. When it gives you a test here, you can actually run a test. Now keep in mind, one of the things is that every time you run these sequences, you are using some tokens. So depending what kind of Relay.app account you have, if you have a free account, you have X number of steps you can run, and you can also have X number of API tokens you can use. So if we go back to my main display here, you can see currently right down here on the left, it says step used 188 out of 200. So I'm reaching the max for my plan at this point in time. And then every month it just resets to the beginning again. And I've used 164 out of 500 AI credits. So I have a ton of AI credits I could potentially still use in this particular period, but I'm almost out of steps in terms of running steps. And the reason I use so many steps is because I was doing testing and retesting, trying different things. So I wasn't necessarily using AI for all the different runs, but I was using the steps, and so it adds up. So keep that in mind. They have several plans. This is the free plan. I want to show you what you can do for free, and you can get quite a bit of stuff done. And the next plan, I think, is like $19 a month. So it's still very inexpensive because it's a very useful service. So if we go back to my tax receipts, one more thing you can do is, as we were looking at this editor, and we could see what we could do by clicking on each one of these steps and seeing the parameters and everything else, you can also look at the runs. So if I look at the runs, I was running this 9 times, shows me dates and times when I ran that particular workflow, as they call them. And for each of the steps, as you can see, is the same steps I have, but it actually has some more information, and I can specifically go and specify, let's say, this particular email. I had 3 different emails I was processing. And then based on this, I could actually look at the AI response by clicking on View Details here and hovering over it. And then when I look at the AI response, which is my polish step, it shows me the value, and I open it up to JSON data 1. Don't worry about what JSON stands for. It's not important. It's basically just your data. That's the easiest way to describe it. And over here, you can see that the JSON data breaks down into the 4 fields that we were using. And you can see it says the description was purchase of a new laptop, category was office equipment. Keep in mind, it figured this out on its own. It's not anything I specified. I specified the description, but it actually put in this office equipment. So it does this using AI. And then the amount, and then it's got the date. There is something wonky with the date. I'm still trying to figure this part out, but basically it looks like it's a little bug, but it could be something I'm doing wrong. And bottom line here is that you get to look at all your fields. If I go to a different email and look at the AI response there, then I will see this was lapsed subscription fee. Okay, so this is a totally different item. You can see the amount is 5, category subscription. You can look at every single piece of data, what it does and how it processes it and what it winds up coming up with as you run these things, and you can check it out and see potentially if there's any problems or anything. You can really go through every single step. It says find details for emails, and so we're looking at the email here. This is the email, and these are the fields that come from the email itself. And if I wanted to, over here it says email URL, I can actually pull up that email by just clicking on this link. So you can go directly to the source, see exactly what it has. It shows the fields here as well, so you don't really have to do it, but if you wanted to, you could, to verify. And so it's a very nice environment in terms of being able to see exactly what's going on. This is not where you're left in the dark in any way. You can really step through and see what data is coming in, what's being pushed in other steps, what kind of values do they have, and so on and so forth. Over here it shows this thing, it says this particular row, you click on it, and it's going to pull up the spreadsheet, and it's going to show you that particular row in the spreadsheet. Extremely useful and nice way to really debug things and make sure things are working exactly you want it to work. So this is pretty much everything on how I set this up to have a really simple way to add my receipts for tax purposes during the year. And then at the end of the year, I can just grab the spreadsheet and I can easily send it to my tax guy, for example, and he has all the categories and he's got all descriptions, everything else. Obviously, you can take it one step further at the end of the year, and you can use either AI or just your own formulas to create a summary that shows all the different items combined by categories. So you don't have this huge list, this huge spreadsheet. You have a much smaller list of things you're giving to your accountant for taxes. There's a number of different things you could do depending on the needs. But the bottom line is the very simple, the simplest I can think of way of me being able to just easily record tax information as it occurs and then subsequently use it as I see fit. Because usually what was happening before was I was going through the motions, I get some email or I do this or I do that, and then I just forget. I forget to mark it a certain way, and I forget to record it anywhere. And then even if you get a receipt somewhere, you stick it somewhere and then you don't remember exactly where it went. Personally, I'm a hashtag no paper guy, so I don't like keeping receipts anywhere. In other words, what I'm trying to say is that for me, it was always a major hassle to come up with end of the year information for my tax accountant so they can do the taxes appropriately with all the proper expenditures and everything summarized and identified. This way, it makes it super easy. I can just record these things on the fly like this, and then they all get stored, and I need to worry about them. At the end of the year, I just simply share the spreadsheet with my account, and I'm done. Literally done. I don't have to sift through any emails, sift through any paperwork, add up the amounts. I don't have to do any of that stuff. All I have to do is simply share a spreadsheet. If you like this approach, certainly feel free to use it on your end. If you have any questions, please leave them down below, and I'll do my best to answer them. And until next time, I'm Oleg.